This is Life Rewired, the brain injury podcast for survivors by survivors. And now your host, Rob and Ashley. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is Life Rewired. Today we're talking with Anessa Earhart, and she is another brain injury survivor that happens to have written a book. And Anessa, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me, Rob. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I was looking at the website. I haven't had a chance to get your book yet, but I'm going to because I'm very inspired by it. But tell people, before we get into the book, tell people how your brain injury occurred.
Gosh, well, it was about 2013, I believe, and it's a two-part, a, a double header. The first part of my brain injury was I was driving home from Restored in downtown Louisville, looking at antiques, and I was coming home, and I was on St. Catherine and 2nd Street, and I was just going through my little Jeep Wrangler, a beautiful day, and I was going through a stoplight, and it was green, and a lady in a passenger van ran a red light and T-boned me. And I did see her coming. I couldn't get out of the way in enough time. I probably did all the things you're not supposed to do. I 10-step and clenched the wheel and all that. And that was the first part of my brain injury, and it was a strong enough impact that my soul flew out of my body, and it snapped back like it was on a big bungee cord, and I will never forget it. Yeah. So that's all in my book. It was such a remarkable feeling. Anyway, we'll get to that later. So then I definitely had a really bad concussion. I had a lot of back and neck stuff and hip problems and all of that, pretty banged up. But I was going to the chiropractor, who's a friend of mine, and he knows me really well. And he said, gosh, Anessa, I can tell you have a concussion for sure. He's like, but it's been, several weeks, and this should have been clearing up by now. And it didn't. And so he said, I think that we need to send you in to get a MRI. And so we made an appointment. And before I could even make it to that appointment, my mom said, hey, it's my birthday. Let me pick you up, get you out of the house. Let's go somewhere and do something fun. Let's get you, because I was really depressed. And so we got in the car. I remember, I've forgotten most of the past 10 years, but I remember this. I remember getting in my mother's car because my back hurt so bad, putting on my seatbelt, went half a mile down the road and got rear-ended in I think it was like 7-car pileup, and another guy ran a red light. And so my mother wasn't hurt at all. It wasn't as bad as the first accident, but the thing was I already had this brain trauma. And then when we got rear-ended, it was enough force to put my mom's bike rack in the back seat. All that happened to me was just my chin just went like that and hit my chest. But I knew that very second, I was like, oh no, I am screwed. And by the next day, it was really bad. That's when things got really, really bad. And I forgot how to spell my name and all sorts of stuff like that. So it was a two-parter. And the thing is that if I had only had one accident, it would have been very cut and dry.
Yeah.
But because it was two, it was really messy just with recuperating, and then also all that insurance nightmare. But everybody was like, they did it. Crazy. Crazy. But anyway, so I got lucky. And so I was like, hey, God, if you're trying to tell me something, maybe there's another way besides, having people just run into me everywhere I go.
Right.
People started calling me lucky.
Yeah. Well, blessed. How about that?
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
I love that because I don't love it that you got the injury, but I love that we can use that as an example because it's a very misnomer that you have to get hit upside the head to have a brain injury, and that's simply not the case.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look at ball players that are out there getting, thrown in the ground and all that, and they get CTE from that. So yeah, I mean, that's a great example.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that you had to be the example.
I don't believe I actually hit my head.
Mm.
Even in the first wreck, my husband at the time, he thinks there's a possibility I did hit like the side of my head on the bar on my Jeep,
Mm-hmm.
but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah,
But that's not where the trauma was. It was both frontal lobes. So when I finally did get an MRI, I had brain damage in both frontal lobes, and then, as you
yeah.
know, the little lesions all over your brain
Mm-hmm.
in your white matter, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I had a lot of those. So I was pretty. It's been a decade, more than a decade, and I am just now starting to feel like myself. Um, but I don't know if I'll ever be 100%. But as you know, um,
mm-hmm.
after you have so many neurologists or doctors just say, "Oh, it's your new normal," you know, get
Yeah,
kind of get used to it, and just you'll. I mean, I did develop a lot of tools and coping strategies to help me um, deal with the things I could no longer do.
yeah,
But at the same time, I really didn't want to believe them. So I also came up with these exercises and methods of that I really fully immersed myself in because they made me feel better. And I was just like completely committed to healing my brain as best I could. And I did
yeah.
have, I think, 5 neurologists over the years, and 4 told me um, this as good as it's going to get about 2
Mm.
years in. This is as good as it's going to get. And then I had one tell me that's a very old way of thinking. Your brain is trying to heal itself right now as much as you can do to encourage it and to make it like foster an environment that is conducive to healing. Your brain is
Yeah.
getting better and don't give up. And I took his advice and I believed him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one that made a difference. So,
Yeah. It's a lifelong journey, it really is. And everyone is different. And I really think attitude is like one of the key factors in your recovery. And I can tell that you have that positive, I'm going to get better attitude.
yeah, yeah. Well, I just felt like I had no choice but to get better because I couldn't, I wasn't going to survive
Mm.
the other way. I wasn't.
Right.
I was so depressed, and I'm a
Yep.
painter, and even though I'd never written a book, I was like a writer. So very creative and always, thinking and problem solving, and I couldn't do any of it. And I just was sinking, because my whole identity of everything I was. This kind of like outgoing, creative artist. I love to
Yeah.
go out and socialize, and I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go to the grocery store; it was too much. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely, at one point, I tried to go to see a band play, and I had like, I guess it was a panic attack or something. I don't know.
Yep.
I just remember everything went wah, 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 and then like I was like I'm gonna pass out, and everybody thought I was drunk, but all I had was like 2 sips of wine, Um, yeah, just all the things that I love to do, I could no longer do. I'm a painter. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
make a living, and I forgot how to paint. Like
Yeah.
I could pick up a brush and put paint on a canvas, but the part of your brain that lets you like look at something,
Mm-hmm.
process the information, and then put it down here, it was
Right.
completely gone. It
Mm.
was like, oh gosh, it was nuts. It was
And
nuts.
sometimes the things that we love to do that we still try to do can
Mhm.
become overwhelming as well.
Oh, yeah. I was very overwhelmed, very depressed, very
Hmm.
frustrated. And so basically, this is a perfect way to talk about how the book came about.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing that made me feel better was taking a walk through the woods, because uh, just nothing, I live in, we had bought a farm, my husband at the time, and we're still friends. And actually he lives still here on this property with me. We have 50 acres. He lives,
Wow.
we're divorced. And he lives in at the bottom of the hill and I live at the top of the hill, and we don't see each other a whole lot, but we're neighbors, and he helped me through the roughest time of my life. So I will never uh, say anything horrible about him, because he was there for me in my darkest hour. And so
Yeah.
he's a good neighbor. But
Mhm.
we had bought this farm with, it was going to be a long term plan, like to move from
Mhm.
the city to the country. But then when I got injured, I couldn't handle the city. I couldn't drive. I couldn't handle the noise and the lights and the sirens and the people. And it was just like all too much. And then also, I just started my own business, and I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I was doing social media management for, I had like 5 clients, and I couldn't write. I couldn't spell, you know, it was awful.
Yeah.
And so our long term plan became a short term plan. I went ahead and moved to the country. And like I said, we're out here off grid. And the only thing that made me better was taking walks. So I would go outside and find a deer path and just follow
Yeah.
it wherever it went. And when I was out there, it was like, I just felt like it was so quiet in the gentle rhythms of nature. And I would
Mm.
just sit on a stump in the middle of the woods and just cry and cry and, you know, pray and cuss and all this stuff and get it all out. And then,
Yeah.
maybe a little bird would sit on a branch and watch me. And it was just always something engaging, something interesting to look at. And I always felt very supported when I was out in the
Yeah.
woods. So, and I would see things that were like little love notes or little signs of encouragement or reminders of resilience and rebirth and,
I
not
love
giving up.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all these little like metaphors for you can do it.
Mm.
It's going to be okay. We all bloom again and the grass always comes back.
Right.
Um, and lots of twinkly, sparkly things, and the dew and the frost and the raindrops and, the sunsets, and just it made me feel so good. But one day I saw the most beautiful thing I think I've ever seen. I was taking one of my walks. I had a headache for 4 years straight, and nothing would touch it. Nothing would touch it. And so I said, well, I'm going to go take a walk. And I took my little dog, Hero. I had 5 dogs at one point, but I took one that day, Hero. We came up here on the top of the hill, and I was watching turkey vultures circle. There
Oh
were
yeah.
13 of them. They were circling like they were in like like a mobile, like
Mhm.
suspended by invisible wire, and the sun was really low, and so the underneath of their wings was very golden and like glistening,
Oh.
and it was just like the most beautiful thing. And I sat there and watched them, and then one by one they all flew away. I looked down at my little dog Hero, and he was like totally zenned out, just like staring at the sunset. And it was a beautiful moment. And so I came back down the hill, and I walked through the door, and I burst into tears. And Bo said, well, why are you crying if it's the most beautiful thing you just saw? And I said, because I won't remember it in 20 minutes.
Mm.
In 20 minutes, I won't even remember that happened. They don't turn into memories. They're just
Yeah.
gone. And he said, well, why don't you start taking your camera with you and like recording these moments, and then you can look at them later. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is such a brilliant stupidly simple
Yeah.
idea. And so from that moment on, I never took a walk without my camera. And so I started documenting all the things that I saw that made me feel good or at peace or happy or optimistic. And then I would lay in bed at night and like look through my camera or look through my phone. Most of them were on my phone.
Mm.
And I would go through and kind of like review my day. And
Yeah.
most of the time, especially when I first started, I had no memory of taking that photo. I didn't know
Mm.
where I was, where it happened. I mean, I knew it was on the farm, but I didn't know like where I was. Um, but I did it every night religiously. And over time, I started going, oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember this. And so, and then I just kept doing it, kept doing it. And it was kind of like, it was like making new connections in my brain or
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, kind of,
That's what I was about to say.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was making new connections and I started remembering where I was. And then not only that, it started, I started healing not just my short term memory, but my spatial memory. Like
Mm.
it, as the little bit more time went on, I knew where I was on the farm when I took it. I was like, oh, I
Oh.
was over like over by the creek or I was over here. So it started healing my spatial memory. Because for a long time, I didn't know where I was, like literally in the world.
Mm.
I had no sense of space or direction or
Yeah.
anything.
I
And
get
then,
that.
yeah. And then here's the best part, I also had vertigo and tinnitus really, really bad. And I still get it, but not as bad as it was back then. So
Yeah.
from walking on the uneven ground through the woods daily, it started healing my vestibular issues. So
Wow.
all of it together was like making me better. And it didn't happen overnight, but it was enough that I was like, oh my God, Eureka, this is it. This is the thing that's gonna heal me. And it's not like a pill and it's not going to some place and you know, this is it. This is the thing that's mechanically and spiritually healing me.
Mm.
And so I got really bonkers about it and I did it every every day, every season, and I still do it. You know, I don't do it every day now, but I'm outside. I now live in a tiny cabin off grid in the middle of 50 acres with no Wi-Fi. Um, you know, I have a composting toilet. That I am cuckoo over my nature immersion therapy. And so anyway, I ended up writing a book about it. That
I love
story.
it. Yeah. Let's show them the book, and we'll actually put a still up on the screen as well. But
Okay.
I want you to show the book off and some of the other companion. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, so this is it. And so these are the photos that I took um, over the years of, you know, so basically the book it's a photography book, but I call it phototherapy is what I called it. And so
Yeah.
I've got some little quotes in here. They're all my quotes. I like to think they're original, but I don't know if there are any original thoughts anymore. Everything's been thought.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's not just a picture book. There's also the big coffee table book is the first part of the book is my story that I kind of just told you. And then
Yeah.
the second part are ways to do what I did to engage with nature, even
Mm.
if you live in the city, like standing outside in your bare feet and grounding, or like, you know, being aware of, oh yeah, I turn right to it, how this book can help. So it gives you like really practical instructions. And I even talk about doctors, you know, a neurologist. And I'm not a hater by any means, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's okay to question them and say, have
And I
your
think
own
we
opinion.
should too.
Yeah, you don't because if I had believed that I wasn't going to get better, I would have just really honestly stopped
Hmm.
and said, "Oh well, the that's what the doctor said." But I'm just kind of a I don't know. Uh, I don't
Yeah.
know what the word is, but
Yeah, I feel like you have to question doctors because I mean they call it practice for a reason because they haven't got it right yet, you know.
yeah, that's a
And
good way to look at it.
there's great doctors out there and there's some not so great doctors out there. My
Yeah.
first neurologist, he slammed his pen down on the desk because I couldn't remember my birth date.
Oh
He
my
said,
goodness.
"Yeah," he said the questions will just get harder from here.
Yeah, he shouldn't be a
So
doctor. That's horrible.
no,
Yeah.
and he told me he was the number one neurologist in the area.
Well, I had a fancy neurologist in Cincinnati tell me I was making the whole thing up.
I've heard that. I've heard that so many times.
I was like, oh my gosh, so this is a 5 year charade, because it was like 5 years in. I said, so
Yeah.
I have been pretending every day for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I was so
Yeah.
upset. So upset. It was like, this is not all in my head. Well, it is because it's my brain. But no.
Right.
Yeah. It's just crazy. Crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
People don't know a whole lot.